Okay, thank you for giving us your attention at the end of a busy day. So why are we here? Why are we talking to you about assessment? Because it matters. Assessment is all about measuring and improving student learning and student success. And because you chose EKU and EKU chose you, I know that that's something that matters to you, that you care deeply about. It's also an extension of what we do naturally. How many of you have changed an assignment after it just didn't go quite as well as you wanted it to one semester? You were like, I could clarify the instructions. I could change this. I could give them a different reading beforehand. Assessment is a natural outgrowth of that, right? It provides a framework for collecting evidence. So instead of just, seems like maybe students aren't getting this. There is a framework for collecting evidence and for having conversations with other faculty about what seems to be going well. Are students learning what we want them to learn? And how can we improve? How can we improve based on the evidence that we collect? Assessment is also about making sure that we are doing what we say we're doing. So we are accountable to different audiences. The Commission on Colleges and Universities, our accrediting body, the Council on Post-Secondary Education, which is our state oversight body, but probably most importantly, students, right? We're trying to improve student learning and student success when we do assessment. Also, other internal bodies like Provost Office, Deans and Associate Deans, also colleagues, talking to colleagues about what you're doing, what's going well, what's not. Assessment at EKU is a cycle. So the data that we collect leads to improvements that inform the outcomes and objectives that we're going to use in the next cycle. So it is cyclical. I won't get too far into that. We're going to focus today a lot on essential education. How many of you are teaching essential education courses? Some of you, a few of you. So essential education is our general education curriculum. I'm going to hand things over to Jade to talk about that because we need to figure out what it is before we talk about how to assess it.
Yeah, so Allison is our Director of Academic Assessment. So she is the assessment guru. I'm more on the side of being a faculty member and participating in the assessment processes. And also I'm going to be serving as the Vice Chair of Essential Education, the Essential Education Committee this coming year. Over the past 2 years, I've been a part of the Essential Education Transformation Committee. So that was a committee of faculty who got together and kind of reimagined what general education could look like at EKU. Because I don't know about you, but a lot of students have kind of a negative idea about general education. They think of it as hoops to jump through rather than courses and opportunities to develop skills and content that will help them down the road. So we wanted to change that narrative. So we have reimagined our general education curriculum, and we now call it the Essential Education Curriculum or program. And that goes into effect this fall. So this will be our first year of calling our general education program Essential Education, because it truly is essential. It's essential content, it's essential in terms of skill development, and the E just goes along with Eastern. So Eastern's Essential Education program. So with our new revamped model, we have 30 credit hours or 10 courses essentially. And those courses are divided among 4 primary elements. Now you can see that there are sub-elements and there are courses for each one. I know that the Zoom link is hiding that box, but the written communication 1 and 2, that's going to essentially be English 102. That adds up to 6 hours. That's the only box that has a different number than 3 in it. One thing that is brand new, and we're going to have the opportunity to share this with students and kind of get them excited about having some options with our flex element. So this element here, the bottom one, they're going to take one class or 3 credits of their choice. And those could be in our, or they will be in our other elements. They're all essential education courses. So it's not a major course, a minor course that's going to be plugged in here. It's an essential education course, but one of their choice. And that might be guided by their major. So I teach in the communication disorders program, and our students need a lot of science background. So instead of one course in 2B, we're recommending that their flex elective be a natural science. So maybe biology and chemistry, okay? Or if a program doesn't have a preference, it could be up to the student. One of my favorite courses that was considered Gen Ed, and of course will now be Essential Ed, was my art appreciation course. Maybe they love that art appreciation course so much, they want to do the music appreciation course. So they could do their flex elective in that 3A area, because the art appreciation, the music appreciation courses are both in area 3A or element 3A. Okay. So I shared one of my favorite courses in terms of just content. It's helped me be, kind of a little bit more knowledgeable when I go to a museum and things like that. So it's helped me engage in social opportunities. I can't say that it necessarily goes along with my major, but it helped me gain information that I actually really enjoy knowing now. Now, some of my courses back in the day, I didn't realize actually would help my major. Like I took an anthropology course, Dr. Weiss. So a professor of anthropology at EKU. I took an anthropology course. Going into that class, I didn't even know what anthropology was. So I had to get a little bit of a lesson, just what is this class in general? But some of the coolest things I learned about family kinship and the way the world views family and community. And that has helped me very much in my major because I'm a speech language pathologist and I work with children with communication needs and supporting them in the context of their family unit and in their community. So that course helped me in my major. The art appreciation course just helped me be I think, a more knowledgeable and engaging citizen in a way. So I hope our students will see the opportunities for growth through the essential education program at EKU and not see it as, okay, these are just some classes that I've got to get myself through in order to get my major courses. This lays the foundation for their future, I feel like. And so with 30 hours, all majors are 120 hours here at EKU. So this is a fourth of their education. And I think it is the quality kind of foundation that they need. So we're going to move on to talking a little bit more about the competencies that they are developing through these courses. So when you hear competency, think content. Think knowledge. So we have competencies paired with each element or sub-element. And so if you're teaching an area 3A, element 3A course, like that art appreciation class, then you're going to be embedding analysis and comprehension. Embedding and assessing, which is what Allison's going to be talking about in a moment. So we have 2 competencies per course, and the competencies are based on the element that course resides in. Okay, so we have competencies, foundational knowledge, and then we have our essential education skills. So skills, when you think of skills, think of the Kentucky graduate profile, because these 10 essential skills are part of that Kentucky graduate profile, which you're going to be learning about in the next session even more. So, you'll become more familiar with those. There are 10, and you can see each course within an element is going to have two essential skills in it. One is based on the element, and then the second essential skill is number 10. Using information for decision making. So all essential ed courses will embed and assess essential skill number 10. And then the other essential skill is based on the element. So if you're using your quantitative reasoning skills, you may notice 1 through 10, we have number 2 missing and number 8. 2 is professionalism, number 8 is knowledge application, and those 2 essential skills are embedded and assessed within our GSD 101 course, which is our student success course. So that's a course that freshmen take their fall semester. So those 2 skills are embedded in GSD 101 and also in major courses. You think about professionalism and knowledge application. Okay. All right, so that's an overview of our new element structure, the 30 credits, an overview of our competencies and our essential education skills. I'm going to hand it over to Allison to talk more about how we assess.
Thanks, Jade. I went too far. Okay. So, one more note about the skills. When we talk about the skills, we know that students are going to develop skills more as they go through their education and as they progress through their degree. How many of you have ever had like a first-year student send you an email that read exactly like a text to one of their friends? Right? Yeah. So skill 4, interact effectively with others. Or skill 1, communicate effectively. They might just need help identifying the basics of these skills at that level when they're first coming in. But we're mostly looking at the milestone level. That's the doing level. So they can perform the skill effectively. In essential education, that's where we're looking. If you think about Bloom's taxonomy, this is kind of towards the middle of that pyramid if you're familiar. But you can also just think about it as they can do the skill independently. So when we think about assessing, we want assessments that show that they can perform the skill, right? Perform the skill without. So I want to give you an overview of the assessment cycle again. I gave you the graphic, which is really cool and shows you that it's a cycle, but here's a little bit more information about what's actually happening at every stage. And here is how it breaks out in the next 2 years, because you are coming in right at the beginning of an assessment cycle. Yay. You don't have to come in the middle. You get to come in right at the ground floor. So it starts with planning. At the program level or unit level, it might be identifying outcomes. For essential education, for each of those elements that we showed you, each of the elements has a common rubric that is used to score student work according to those competencies and those essential skills that Jade just went over for us. So that's step 1. And then how are you going to, okay, you've got your outcomes, right? You've validated the rubric, you know what you're measuring. How are you going to measure it? This is usually with some kind of assignment, right? Finalizing those assessment instruments is something that's going to be happening early on in this fall. Some courses, some of you who are teaching essential ed courses, you might have already gotten some finalized assessment instruments. Maybe the assessment coordinator for that course has already reached out and said, here you go. Because these are course level decisions. What assignment is going to be used for measurement? By the end of fall, you're going to collect data if your course is taught this semester. If you're teaching an essential ed course that isn't offered until the spring, you're collecting data in the spring instead. Then analyzing the data, looking at what are the results, what are the patterns here? What does this tell us? Where are the students performing well? Where could they use a little bit of extra help? Maybe it's really clear that all those lessons that you gave them on citation styles are really sticking, and they're using citation styles really well, but they're having trouble crafting a strong thesis statement. So what are the patterns that the data shows you? And then what can you change at the course level? What's something that you can do to support student learning? If you're looking at the program level, what's something that you can change at the program level or the unit level? By the end of fall 27, you're going to implement those learning improvements or student success improvements. And then the STAR report is our reporting instrument for assessment. And that is due in February 1st. Does anybody know if they're responsible for submitting a STAR report? Okay. We'll talk more. We'll talk more.
But they're all responsible for contributing to the
Yes,
STAR report.
absolutely.
We have essential education STAR reports and we have STAR reports for the majors.
Yeah. And you should all be part of an assessment team. If you're teaching an essential education course, you should be contributing to those conversations. You should be brought into those conversations about what does the data mean and what can we do to improve things. So if you, how many of you are familiar with backwards design? Okay. So those of you who are familiar with backwards design, this looks like a pretty backwards design process, right? We're starting with objectives. We're starting with the outcomes. What are our goals? And then let's plan our assessments. Let's design the instruments that we're going to use to measure whether students are meeting those goals, whether we're meeting those goals. And then implementing learning improvements, learning activities. So this is a backwards design process, and that's something that you can take advantage of as you plan, especially if you're responsible for submitting a report. But even if you're contributing to it, you can think about this. Where am I in the process? So focusing specifically on essential education, rubric validation is that first step. Rather than generating independent outcomes, we've got the common rubric for the element, validating it. The element leaders, going to be chairs, program coordinators, course coordinators usually, are going to validate that rubric. And then course level coordination and the assessment team might contribute to this as well, should be contributing to this as well. How are we measuring this? What is the assignment or the assessment that we're using to make sure that students are learning what we said that they should learn? We validated the rubric. Let's make sure that they're doing that. Let's make sure they're learning these things. For essential education courses, there's going to be at least 2 assessments. You can have, remember, we've got 2 competencies and 2 essential skills for essential education course. Each assignment can assess up to 1 competency and 1 essential skill. Once the data is collected, so you've got your assessment instrument, everybody gives the assignment, you collect your data, and then you use the rubric to score the data, and then you compare it against a criterion. That criterion for the element is a percentage of students who perform at a selected level. We've got different levels of achievement within the rubric. The criterion reflects a percentage of students who, an average of students who have performed at that level over the last few assessment cycles.
And I helped Allison review general education, because that's what we've been calling these courses, reports this summer. And what I realized is that there were some confusion at times about that achievement level, because we were not really expecting that level 4 proficiency, because this is, the first experience with the competency, with the skill perhaps. And so it's really more developing, perhaps emerging. So don't think that these skills, these competencies need to be 100%, perfect for every student in your course. This is their introduction, and then they're going to get more opportunity for competency and skill development as they proceed through their program.
Yeah, and some programs have even chosen, like, instead of choosing like the highest level, have chosen like the middle levels as what they want their students to hit. But fundamentally, this process is less about being like, oh, our criterion is 75%. Only 65% of our students hit the criterion. Oh no, that's not a crisis. That's an opportunity to talk about, like, what do we think is going on? What can we change? How do we get them there? So successful assessment is about showing that you are thoughtfully collecting the data and trying to make the improvements to help your students reach the goals that we've set for them, right? To reach those competencies, to reach that level of essential skill mastery that we want for them. So again, it's not a disaster. If you take one thing away, please take that away. It is about the efforts to try and help students improve their learning, help students improve their success over time, the trends. Okay.
That's really more about what we're doing than what the students are necessarily doing. The students, of course, that's our main focus, that's the end goal. But the assessment process is, what are we doing to make students get to those expected levels?
Right. How can we change our practice to help them get there? The other most important thing, this is the holy grail of assessment, the improvement, the learning improvement or the student success improvement. That is where we're aiming. That's where we're heading. That's the entire purpose, right? Like, we want to use evidence to improve their learning, improve their success. Within essential education, we have one improvement per competency or essential skill. So how many improvements is that per course? I know we've thrown a bunch at you. Because you have 2 competencies and 2 skills, right? So it's 4. Does that sound like a lot? It can, right? That can sound like a lot. But these improvements don't have to be high stakes. They don't have to be big lifts. These can be smaller stakes changes. These can be small and meaningful. So you all said, all of you kind of nodded at me when I said, how many of you have changed an assignment? Because you were like, my students are just not getting this. I need to I gotta change the instructions. I need to let them know that they have to do this part. I thought they would get that automatically, but they don't. I've had to add instructions about how to save a document sometimes because they're amazing with phones and tablets, but put them in front of a laptop and ooh, it's a whole different world, right? Yeah. So clarifying assignment instructions or adding assignment instructions, tilting assignment instructions. Have you heard about transparency in teaching and learning? All right, some of you have. You'll get it if you haven't, and we have a lot of resources on that method. Adding a 5-minute class activity. Sometimes if you have students do a free write and have a little short discussion about a concept. Has anybody had the experience that just gets them there a little bit better? Just do a little free write. And then ask them to talk about it. And then suddenly, oh, they have a little bit of a better grasp on the sociological imagination or on poverty or whatever you're trying to teach them. Changing lecture slides, adding a little bit more information. Maybe they need some more background information. Maybe they just don't have the background that you assumed they would have. Sometimes it really is like the reading needs to change. I'm talking a lot about social imagination, sociologist by training, you can tell. But if we think about changing a reading, the sociological imagination by C. Ray Mills, great foundational, use it in sociology classes all the time, written in the 1950s. The language gets away from students a little bit. I'm substituting it for a context article that takes those same concepts, but puts it in a little bit more relatable language. That would be an option. A practice session. Maybe they need a practice session to practice the skill that you want them to use on the assessment. Maybe they need more practice writing an essay. Maybe they need more practice performing some kind of calculation. These are all changes that you can make. These are all learning improvements that you can institute. And they don't have to be super high stakes. And you can show evidence of this by changes like a before and after syllabus, before and after slides, before and after course notes, that kind of thing. So don't think that these need to be super high stakes. But do think about making them meaningful. How can you base them on the patterns that you saw, that you talked about with your assessment team, and make them meaningful, make this concept hit harder with the students. So we have, you're going to hear a lot about this. We have an essential skills accelerator. If you want to learn more about the essential skills, that is happening on this day-long PD is happening on August 20th. I won't go into too much detail, but this is a great opportunity for those teaching essential education courses, especially if you are trying to get more of a handle on this, looking for some more resources, anything like that. You can register using the QR code, and the presentation will be shared with you after this. And I think we've got 3 minutes until the next presentation, if you have questions.
So I'm the course coordinator for POL 101. And what I understand, we have in each category, so 3 skills and 3 like, subcategories. Am I understanding that correct? Because I know you said that.
So POL 101 is in more than one element, and there are a few courses that are. If you're teaching an essential education